Just 8th grade, yeah. Okay. So welcome. We're looking at the August 2023. Everyone in here should have received a packet. Kind of just nice to have it on paper. I know I've asked you guys in the past to print or like look at it as a PDF. It's nice to have it in front of you. You have the mock now and you have this one. I put in a few more copies as well. Not saying that you have to do all these when we eventually get them, but it's always just nice to have some extra practice materials. So we'll look through some of these multiple choice. To get us started, I found that we've been doing like 45 minutes for the multiple choice. We're starting a little bit late today. If need be, we can go over a little over 7:30. I don't want to keep you guys as late as I know Earth Science. Some people were telling me it was like 2 hours last night, but we've been able to squeeze everything in. So let's see how we do. Let's start us off. We have, what topic would this fall under? Kind of like function stuff, increasing, decreasing. Based on the graph, the cafe owner saw a continual, what did we say here? Increase from 6 to 11, increase from 12 to 3, decrease from 1 to 4. Yeah, choice 3 makes the most sense here. Kind of nice. I've said this a few times. I feel like they always make the first question kind of like user friendly. Okay, it is a different rate of change. It bends, it curves, but is it decreasing from 1 to 4 o'clock? Yes, it's going down the entire time. We have a polynomial question. I feel like I always see this on the first page as well. So this is distributing the 2 and then just combining like terms. They put parentheses around the trinomial there, but there's no subtracting. There's no weird trick going on. So you can kind of just drop those right away. After we distribute the 2, we'll get 22 minus 10x. And combining that with the trinomial out front, we don't have any x squared, so 3x squared. We had 4x. We're going to combine that with negative 10x to give us negative 6. And that actually gives us the answer right away. There's only one choice with the negative 6x. And just to double check, we have a negative 8 and a 22. That gives us 14. Did I spell it? Isn't number 1 choice 4? No, because 11 o'clock is right here. It's increasing at 11 o'clock. Increasing, decreasing, just like positive versus negative slope, rate of change slope. Yep, good question. Okay, question like this, you're given a point, which one is a solution, meaning which one works. What could we do here? We could sit, plug them in one at a time. What would be a nice calculator way of doing this one? Yeah, type it into y equals and just go to your table. And then we're going to look for the one, they're all relatively close to each other. So we'll probably be able to see them on one window there. Which one works here? Choice 1, if you plug in a negative 3, you will get negative 21. Okay, y equals, go to your table. Which one are you seeing? Or manually, you could plug them in. That's just a little bit more work. Okay, nice, easy multiple choice to start. Different looking equation here, just like a different look to it. We would start by getting rid of the 9. We're up to question 4. Okay, that's going to give us 5. And then I'm going to rewrite what's left. Just unusual, I guess, the way this one looks. So we'd want to get rid of this big divide by 3. So what can we do to do that? We can multiply by 3. That's going to create a 15. You know what? I'm going to distribute as well. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We get 15. We move the 20 over. And now when we divide by 10, we'll get 3.5. Choice 2. Just a different looking equation. I feel like they try to throw something a little weird in when they put these equations in, whether it's a crazy decimal answer, a lot of fractions. This one, just an unusual look. You could have multiplied by 3/5. Yeah, that could have worked. That might have been a better idea. That would have worked, what Caleb said. But yeah. Transformation question here. We went over this topic yesterday. So the transformation that they're asking is an IHOP rule. So -2 is going to be 2 to the right. I'm just going to abbreviate, and 1 up. So now we're looking for the picture that's been shifted 2 to the right and 1 up, which would be choice 1. Choice 1. Remember, because it's inside the parentheses, inside the rule, inside the bars, IHOP, it's the opposite movement, 2 to the right and 1 up. The last number 4 was 2 and number 5 was 1. Okay, number 6, area of a TV. The length is 6 inches less than twice the width. Okay, so this question just amounts to, can you translate? We've seen a lot of problems like this. 6 less than twice the width. So if the width is x, how would you represent 6 less than twice it? I feel like that didn't make grammatic sense. 2x minus 6. That does that kind of switch idea. 6 inches less than, even though it happens first in the sentence, happens second in the expression. 6 inches less than twice, or double something. So we double it, and then we take away 6. And now which one does this correctly? What's going on with choice 3? I guess they're trying to make 3 like perimeter. But it says the area. So yeah, area is just length times width. So which choice for number 6? Choice 1. Choice 1. 3 and 4, I guess they're trying to trick people with maybe perimeter. Perimeter is the one 2L plus 2W, but clearly says area. I'm not sure how someone would make that mistake. Third quartile. What is the third quartile of this box plot? What is the third quartile of this box plot? 60, yeah. Third quartile, we're looking for the right-hand side of it. 60, I would say, is a trick. Just be on the lookout for scale. I probably would have made this question end at like right here, and I would have put 61 as a choice, and people would have circled it. So make sure you understand the scale. In this case, it's going by fives. But this one ends clearly at the number 60. Choice question 3 is choice 1. Okay, we have a box method question. Box method, draw your little 2x2. You know what? I don't usually do it, but I'll do it here. We have 2x squared, we have negative 6x, we have plus 7x, and then we have minus 21. So we have 2x squared, 7 minus 6 for our x's, our like terms will give us just 1x, and then the minus 21, choice 2. Worst case, you don't want to like try to flex and do it in your head, like draw the little 2x2 grid. Number 9, what is the degree? What do you guys think for number 9? The degree is 3, which is 3. 3, 3. Degree is the highest exponent. They're usually going to write it out of order just to confuse you, but regardless, it's the highest exponent that you see. What would be the lead coefficient for number 9? No. No. Ooh, I'm glad I asked this. What's the lead coefficient? Yeah, 1. 1. The lead coefficient is the coefficient of the first term. So in this case, x to the third is the first term when it's written correctly and doesn't have anything there, but there's really an imaginary 1. 5 is nothing. There's no constant. There's 3 terms, but yeah, the lead coefficient would be 1. Okay. For number 9, for number 10, we have an inequality. I'm assuming we're going to get some dividing by negative stuff. I already see a negative 3, so let's see what happens. We're going to get negative 3x plus 18. Move the 2x over, move the 18 to the right. And now, I guessed it, you divide by a negative 5. Since I'm dividing by a negative, we flip the sign. We've seen this come up in the past few that we did. I think last week, same thing happened. A dividing by a negative inequality. They really want to test, I'm sorry, we messed up. They really want to test, do you understand this concept? So we flip the sign and even look at choice. The answer here is choice 2. Choice 1, people forget to flip. They're going to put 1. How could you get negative 16? Hmm, I'm not sure. Some mistake with the 18 and the 2? Huh, I'm not sure. Yeah, negative 18. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, we're almost halfway there for the multiple choice. All right, this is a good one. We haven't done this question. I don't think I put this question, I think. So why am I saying this is a good one? On the mock regions, we had one like this, and this was actually our lowest performing question, an exponent rule. Very random, but and it was kind of similar to this. It had a little bit more going on. I think they had a number in it as well, a coefficient in it as well. But exponent rules, it was a very similar setup. So what I would do for these is clean up each one and then just look at it. So for the first one, we have our double exponent rule. Double exponent rule says multiply. So x cubed is just x to the ninth. Number two, we have our, I would just call this, what do we call it? Our multiplication rule, product rule. When they have the same base, you can add exponents. So we also get 9. And number three, same thing. You could add exponents. 10 plus negative 1, so 10 minus 1 is also 9. So which ones are equivalent? All three. 1, 2, and 3. It only tested 2 exponent rules. Your double exponent rule, it's really called the power rule. It's kind of like distribution, you multiply. Um, and then your product rule where you add exponents. You add exponents for like bases. 1, 2, and 3 for number 11. All right, number 12. This is the topic we went over today. Think you guys are finally starting to see like patterns, right? Like, oh man, we did like 2 questions just like this. We see a multiple choice like this every year, right? Which phrase describes the yearly rate of change? Okay, this one's rather easy. Choice 3, yeah. It's obviously increasing right away, right? We talk about with multiple choice, like getting rid of choices, especially if you're confused. So right away, cross off 1 and 2. It's not subtracting. Um, the sign is adding. So this is a growth function. So is it increasing by 0.05%? No, it's increasing by 5%. It's 0.05 as a decimal, which is 5%. Okay, we're at the halfway point for the multiple choice. All right, number 13. What are the zeros of, this is technically a cubic, but we could kind of still solve it as if it was a quadratic. Um, so, let's just set this up. We can factor this a little bit more, the x squared minus 16. That's a dot. So I'm going to continue to factor this so it looks like this. So what I did was kind of broke this down even further. And then, you know how we usually do like a T-chart? No, it's going to be more of like an H, I suppose. We're going to set each of these equal to 0, zero product property. So we're going to get 3 answers: 0, -4, and +4. So choice 3. It's kind of like solving a quadratic when we use the factoring approach, T-chart. But in this case, we have an x out front. So 0 is a valid solution, right? If I were to plug in a 0 for x, it would make it equal to 0. If I were to plug in a negative or +4, same thing. Choice 1 would be a common wrong answer here because people would forget about this guy. What else can you do with this question? I feel like this is usually the answer, but type it into y equals. We should all know what zeros are. And then just kind of scroll on your table. It will help catch the idea that there's 3 of them, which would be, oh, my laptop's running low, which would be the common mistake with a question like this. Yep. Zero feature isn't needed if they're nice because you could just see it in the table. Cool. All right. For 14, didn't we see? think we had a question like this last week, but it was largest. For which function is the value of the y-intercept the smallest? The smallest. Okay, so y-intercepts in the table, we're looking for zeros. So here, here. Using my knowledge of kind of transformations or absolute value functions, that y-intercept is 4. It's just going to be the number on the end because it shifted it up 4. And 5 to the x power. This one, you don't even need to touch a calculator. 5 to the x power, you could just plug in a 0. Because remember, y-intercepts are where x equals 0. What is anything to the 0 power? If you're not sure, use your calculator. Don't say 0. 1. So which of these has the smallest y-intercept? Choice 4. Choice 4. The tables were 3 and 2. The absolute value, again, if you're not 100% sure, type it in, verify it, or just plug in a 0 like we did for 4. 0 plus 4 is 4. And k of x ends up being our answer. It has a y-intercept of 1. Exponential functions, unless they've been shifted up or down, which we don't really deal with this year, exponential functions have a y-intercept of 1. But not all the time because you can shift them. But if you just have a generic, base to the x power with no coefficient, it will have a y-intercept of 1 because of this reason. 14.4, 14.4. 15. We've seen questions like this a bunch. I think the one I put on your test was like a double root trick. This one, no trick. What is the factorization of this quadratic? Okay, write the roots down if you need to. It has roots at -1 and +3, which means what would they look like as factors? They would be the opposite or inverse of that. So x equals -1 would be x plus 1. X equals 3 would be x minus 3. So choice 2. Pretty fair multiple choice so far, I have to say, right? No spoilers. 15 is 2, yeah. 16. I always find with these questions, it's nice to have like a picture of it in mind, a sketch, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same. X squared plus 2x minus 5. And we're looking for the range, so range y values. It looks like -1, -6. Okay, is the vertex. I found that just by scanning. If you can't find the vertex, do your negative b over 2a stuff. But in this case, it is a nice vertex. I know that's a horrible graph, but it's just for demonstration purposes. So the range is going to be everything larger than -6. So choice 2. Again, having like a little picture image in mind does, my graph looks weird, does come in handy with these questions. Okay, type it in, look at your table. Oh, okay. Cross off 1 and 3 because it's not a reflected quadratic and upside down. 16 is 2. 15 and 16 are both 2. I have. That's not what that's not what I usually refer to with IHOP, but yeah, I guess IHOP is usually the transformation rule. The factorization is just like an inverse, but I guess it's the same idea. All right, which of these is an exponential function? Another topic we talked about today. So which of these 4 tables is exponential? Which one is exponential? Yeah, table 3. What are you looking for? What's the key defining feature with exponentials? Multiplication. Okay, h of x is multiplying by 2. Which one is linear? Which one is linear? J of x. Yeah, j of x would be linear. It has a constant rate of change. I'm not sure what f and g are. G may be a quadratic. It's not enough information to tell. Good. 18. Which statement is true? Which statement is true? What I would do for this, type it into y equals. Again, they're basically just asking us which x values are the same or have the same output. So x squared plus 3x. And let's see. Does f of 1 equal f of negative 1? No. F of 1 is 4, f of negative 1 is negative 2. So choice 1 is out. Does f of 2 equal f of negative 2? No, also. 2, 10, and negative 2, negative 2. So what I'm doing is just looking at the table for each choice and seeing if it works out. Does f of 1 equal f of 2? No. And the answer here is going to be choice 4. F of negative 1 and f of negative 2 are equal to one another. If you don't have a calculator, this is what your table looks like. At x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 2, they have the exact same y value. Otherwise, it's kind of an annoying question to answer, so using the table really comes in handy. Yep, 17 was 3. 18, 4. Okay, this is kind of like the do now today. We have recursive stuff going on. Someone asked, like, are they really going to ask that? I didn't even plan this. We see it right here. The first day he did 10 push-ups, and then he does 9 less than twice the number from the day before. 9 less than twice. We have another one of these. 9 less than twice from the day before, the previous day. Which recursive rule is correct? Unfortunately, knowing that the first day is 10 doesn't help us at all. All 4 choices have that. Which choice do you guys think here is correct? It's choice 1. Choice 1. Very good. So we definitely want that previous and next idea, right? A sub n minus 1 just means the one before it. A sub n means the next one. This 2 is representing the twice or the double. And same thing happened earlier. So they're kind of testing this same idea twice. When it says 9 less than, it's actually minus 9 tacked on the end, not choice 2. If you thought the answer was choice 2, just that little translating thing with subtraction, the English order is different than the math order. Okay, 19-1. Number 20. We're getting there with multiple choice. We're going pretty quick too. 20. What topic is 20 testing? Can anyone tell me what topic is this testing? Yeah, this is a CTS question. Hey, do you know how to complete the square? There's ways around it. There's other ways to figure it out, guess and check type stuff or working backwards, but this is really testing, do you know CTS, right? Because all the choices have a completed square in them. This is not a perfect trinomial right now. However, we can make it one. Okay, we cut b in half, square it. The magic number is 9. On the right, you're going to get 5. On the left, when you make your bubble, I said it's always going to be half of b. So if b was negative 6, half of that would be negative 3. And that bubble is squared. So this would be choice 2. How could you backdoor this question? You could expand each choice and see which one works out. When I say expand, like do x minus 3 squared. X minus 3 times x minus 3, move 5 over. You could also use y equals. You would just need to, I guess, move the numbers over for each choice. Okay, 20 is 2. 20 is 2. 21, what is the equation on the line that passes through 6, negative 3, and has a slope of negative 4/3? Huh. Oh, this is annoying. Okay. There's a slight annoying thing about this. All 4 choices have the same slope. So the slope doesn't help us out at all. It's really just which one passes through 6, negative 3. How do I know they all have the same slope? If choice 1 and 2, if I divide by 3, I'm going to get negative 4/3. Choice 3 and 4, if I divide by negative 3, I'm also going to get negative 4/3. So the slope, unfortunately, doesn't even rule anything out. So it's really just which one works with 6, negative 3. Also annoying because they're not in y equals. So if we wanted to plug them in, this one might be easier to do kind of mental math. Not literally mental math, but like without using our calculator and just plugging 6, negative 3 in and seeing which one works. Let's see if we can find the equation as is that works with 6, negative 3. I think we found it right away. Does anyone see it? That kind of gives a hint. Does anyone see the one that works with 6, -3? Choice one. Yeah, I think choice one works, right? That's what I was saying. I found it right away. And why did I say to leave it like this? Because I think doing all the work of getting all four of them in y equals and plugging them in, it's just a mess. It might be easier just to kind of like in your head or have like your calculator home screen open and just do the math. If you plug in 3, -3 and a 6, you're going to get -9. On the right, you get -24 plus 15 is also -9. So choice one works out. The slope doesn't matter because the slopes are all the same. 22, inappropriate domain. We've seen questions like this all the time. In this case, your domain is miles. So miles, the amount of miles that you drive, kind of like the little thing on your dashboard of your car says that. What would be an appropriate domain? Not integers. I don't know if you guys are answering the last one or not, but integers wouldn't be an appropriate domain. That would be negatives. Huh. What do we think? Yeah, I would say Kyle said 4. You can let me ask you guys, can you drive a decimal amount of miles? Can I drive 2.4 miles to my friend's house? Yeah. I know the answer I feel like the answer when we've done these has been choice 3 for like a bunch of them in a row, but in this case, decimals do make sense. You drive a decimal amount. I could drive 5.5 miles. I could drive 5.12 miles. So non-negative rational numbers. Rationals just include all the decimals and fractions in between. Choice 1 and 2 would involve negatives, so those are out right away. I don't think we've seen one where negatives were possible yet with all these types of questions. 22 was 4. Yeah, I think some people are answering the last one. 23, what is the average rate of change? We went over that topic earlier. Ooh, polio cases in Nigeria from 2006 to 2013. So that's important because they're telling us to focus here and here. Okay, average rate of change, they have to tell you where to look. So this is nonlinear, meaning it's not going to be the same, and we can't just pick any row we want. So we're just focusing, or column. We're just focusing on these two columns. So we know it's a change of 7 years. Okay, and we went from 1129 to 53. So that's a change of 1,000 and something. 1076. Okay, negative 1076. So we went down 1,076 cases over 7 years, which is a change of 153.7. 71, rounding to the nearest hundredth. Choice 4. Average rate of change slope. Change in your y values. It's negative here. There's not even a choice that's positive, so it's not like you can mess that up. It's negative here because we did go down. The change in x, where did I get 7 from? 2006 to 2013. This one, yeah. I didn't put this question on a test, but there's been ones like this. And 24, here we go. How many times have we seen this now? This one's kind of a basic one, but whatever we want to call this, gas prices in England and New York State. So England, they're going to use euros and liters. New York, we're going to use random measurements that don't really make sense, dollars and gallons. In England, gas sold for 1.35 euros per liter, and $1 equaled. Oh, maybe our trick won't work here. This one's a little weird. A correct way to figure out this in dollars per gallon is, so we wanted to say dollars per gallon when we're all done. I'm curious if there's going to be more than one choice that works out. Let's see. So with this, the trick that we're looking for is canceling. What's left after should be money up top. Let me be more specific. Dollars up top and gallons on the bottom. Let's see which one works out. So euro, euro. Uh, what is L? Liters, liters, liters. And choice one, we're left with dollars and gallons. Now let me just make sure. So two, we have double liters on the bottom. We have liters squared, so that's no good. Choice three, liters, liters. We have euros squared, no good. And yeah, so our trick does work here. I thought this one was maybe going to have two that worked, and we actually had to know what we were doing the right way. But yeah, crossing off your units does reveal the answer to be choice one. This trick will always work. Okay. Really, if you're curious too, like what are these proportions coming from? It's kind of like a sixth grade topic of like proportionality. Hey, if one liter is 1.35 euros, and the conversion, I guess this is the conversion between dollars. So it deals with proportionality stuff, but it's easier just to cancel out your units. It's converting unit. No one really, like, if you were converting, if I said, hey guys, convert inches to miles, you wouldn't set up like five proportions in a row. We would all be able to figure it out. We would say, all right, there's this many inches in a foot, there's this many feet in a mile. But this is just setting it up in one sweeping proportion. Okay, that's the multiple choice section. Pretty fair. I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I found this fair. No real trick questions. 24, if you've never seen it, but we have at this point, would jump out to me. The recursive one, people tend to not like those, but pretty fair multiple choice. Did anyone do the multiple choice ahead of time? Did anyone get a little bit ahead of me? Did we do okay? Did we still find one that was tough? Any comments with the multiple choice? We'll take a little mini break here for a minute if you want to take a break, and we'll get started on the part twos. Part twos. Something like choices 3 or 4. 3 or 4 are like getting into like explicit. It looks like they're like combining some sort of weird explicit. But yeah, it doesn't work. The fact that it says recursive, you need that a sub n minus 1. All right. You know what? I'll do this. We'll put this up for a moment. Rational versus irrational. Take a little mini break here. Come back in a minute. We did pretty good, like 30 minutes for the multiple choice. That's a good speed run. Again, very important now. This is why it's really nice to have your packet in front of you when we do some of these. There'll be a graph, there'll be some blank space for you to write. It came out, even the copies I gave you, like I did the same thing as your mock. I squeezed in 2 pages, but this would be like a full page on the Regents. So if you're concerned about spacing and stuff like that, like they give you a full page of paper for this question. So obviously don't feel obligated to like fill it out. Like your answer to this could be 1/10 of the page. They just tend to put one question on a page. Sometimes they squeeze two in. Don't feel obligated to, yeah, see here, every single question has its own page. Don't obviously feel obligated. You have plenty of space. Spacing is not an issue. Seeing is not an issue. I know also the copies come out small sometimes. Seeing it's not an issue either. Okay. Yeah, Caleb, those don't have a name. Like we looked at those, the other sequences. Arithmetic is adding, geometric multiplying, and you could have like weird combos, but that's not something we'd really see. All right, would you call this sum we're adding together rational or irrational? And also, we need to explain. The explanation is really the meat, the meat and potatoes of this problem. Just saying rational, irrational doesn't really get us anything. This is rational. This is rational, but why? Oh no! My iPad's on life support. Give me one moment. But why? Yeah. What's our go-to phrase with these? We say, um, so you could say 2 over 12, 13 over 3. Okay. You don't even need to figure all this out, whatever it happens to be. What would that be? 52 over 12, 54 over 12. You could simplify that to 27 over 6, 9 over 2. Okay. You don't even need to figure all that out. It's just the idea that it can be written as a ratio of integers. Can be written as a ratio of two integers. That's your go-to phrase. Can or can't. Okay. Other things you guys wrote on the mock that were very nice. Like in this case, the answer is 4.5. You could say it's a terminating decimal, right? 4.5. If it happens to work out to a whole number or something like that, an integer, you could say that. But hey, can be written as a ratio of two integers is all you need. You actually don't even need to figure out the math. That's not even part of it. They're not like, hey, simplify this and then answer it. So even if I just wrote, yes, it is, yes, it's rational because of, our reasoning, that's fine. You don't need to say repeating, you just say terminating. You need to say, if it's irrational, you would need to say non-terminating, non-repeating. If you say terminating, it stops. It's kind of redundant to say repeating it on top of that. Okay. Makes it easier to start. This question we had on our statistics test. So I'm going to kind of fly through this. We did very well with this question. It's just filling out a two-way frequency table. Um, let me pull up my answer key so I have it. Spoilers in chat. Okay. Yeah, this was on our last statistics test. The only thing that some people messed up, and maybe some of you guys could help me out. I know some people lost a point. They did something weird here. It was the dolphin column when I was checking it where people made a mistake. Let's see if we could figure out why. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they weren't sure how to find 30% of 60. You could just multiply it by 0.3. I don't know if you messed up male and female, put them in the wrong spot. But two-way table, everything should add out, work up, kind of like solving a puzzle at some point. Once you know like two of the columns, you know what it needs to add up to, or two of the rows. We had this exact question. I feel like I've seen this before. You have. It was on our last test. All right. 27. Questions with 26? 27. Brian said that the piecewise has a domain of all real numbers. State two reasons why Brian is incorrect. So why is Brian incorrect? We need to say two. I would maybe do something like this just to make it very clear. Like literally like 1 and 2. Why is Brian incorrect? Did I put this on a test? Did we have this question on a test? I think we did. Okay, yeah. I'm like, I feel like we've done this. Yeah, Brian's not doing so hot. So one thing that we could say that's wrong is x equals 3 is not included. The x value of 3 is not a part of this domain. There's two open circles. There's no, nothing touching it. Additionally, the second reason would be the fact that this doesn't go on forever. That's an endpoint, not an arrow. So nothing is defined past 4. Something along those lines. Okay, it touches 4, 4 works, but then everything past 4, it's not defined. So 3 doesn't work, okay, but then everything past 4 doesn't work as well. I think we did well on this question. We had this on one of our exams. Yep. All right, 28. This would fall under the, not our favorite topic, but rearranging formulas, literal equations topic. Sometimes we struggle with this. So let's do this one together, especially if you have your packet, which everyone should. They always add like the most confusing letters. Those are subscripts, so those are not variables. That says v sub I and v sub f. So they should probably just do that to make it more confusing looking. We want to solve this for vf. First thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of the t by dividing by t. And I'm going to get rid of the 2 by multiplying by 2. Okay, and now last move here. I'm one move away. What can I do to finish this off? What can I do to finish this off? X is not defined past 4 is undefined. Like, hey, X doesn't work. X isn't allowed past 4 is what I meant. Yeah, subtract VI. Let me subtract VI from both sides. So our final answer is going to be 2D over T minus VI separately, not a part of that fraction. I wrote it, the opposite way, but that's fine. 2D over T minus VI separately. Be careful not to put that like in the numerator of the fraction that happens after the division. We're separate from the division. Okay. Don't be thrown off if they try to make it scary with subscripts. They basically don't do anything. Do you need someone cooking maybe? Sometimes it goes off if you're cooking and it gets a little too smoky. Hopefully something's not on fire. 28, 29, solve algebraically. We always say like look for context clues. Since they're not saying anything about rounding, what can I assume about this? What can I assume about this? Since they don't mention anything about rounding or radicals. Yeah, I'm going to assume that this works out, which means factoring would work as well. Hopefully we're not wrong. So does this factor? Are there two numbers that add up to -9 and multiply to -36? Since it's a negative product, that would make your signs different. One of each, a plus and a minus. Are there any two numbers that add up to -9 and multiply to -36? -12 and 3. Yeah, sometimes I feel like a lot of us are just like, oh, quad formula, CTS. I wouldn't want to do CTS here anyway because you have an odd b value, which gets annoying. And quad formulas is just a little, overkill. If it factors, this is going to be a lot easier. This is algebraic, and it's like 5 times faster. Your two answers are going to be 12 and -3. Context clues, right? Hey, it's not mentioning rounding, so maybe this works out nicely, and it does. 4.5. Oh, the b value. Yeah, that CTS with odd b values gets annoying because you have fractions. So even b values work out nicely. A equals to 1, obviously. How did you get rid of the 2 in 28? Manuel is on a time delay. How did I get rid of the 2? I did 2 steps in one. but I divided by t to get rid of the t, and then I multiplied by 2 to get rid of the divide by 2. So I didn't show my work, but like this. Multiplying will get rid of that division. Cool with 29? I know this doesn't relate. Yes. Most classes, well, 2 classes like got a head start, if not finished it, but topic 13. 30. Another sequence question. Determine the common difference in the sequence. Ooh, we've done questions like this. And then find the 21st term. Ooh. Okay. Um, Trying to think how we want to do this. So we usually do these like this. Okay, they are telling us it's arithmetic, which means you're adding something. So we know this goes up by 12. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps for plus 12, which means each one is plus 3. You can check to verify. So we know the common difference is 3. That was part 1, I guess. This is a 2-point question, so that's plus 1. Now they want to know the 21st term. Worst case, you can just sit there and go plus 3, plus 3, plus 3. Or they could have made it something crazier where maybe you didn't want to do that. We can write the explicit rule. Just for good measure, we'll do that. This is the explicit rule. This formula is given to you. A1 plus D parentheses n minus 1. I just plugged in for A1 and D already. And now you would plug in a 21. So you'd get 3 times 20, 60, plus 5. The 21st term is 65. You don't need to do it that way. If you just wrote 65 on your paper, that's fine. Yeah, or if you have your own way of figuring it out, like, hey, let me take away 1 from, that's kind of what you're doing. Okay. Factor completely. Whenever we see this phrase, be suspicious. The only thing you could start with here, this is not a dots problem currently. 18 is not perfect. So I'm going to start with GCF. I'm going to pull out a 2. Now dots is possible. I don't want to forget about the 2. So I'm going to leave that there. And dots says take the square root and put opposite signs in your bubbles. Square root of 1 is still just 1. Okay. Some of you lost points because you forgot about the GCF or left it hanging. We also did this weird thing on the mock where like you switched the order of it, but just leave it. I caught that. I don't know if the person grading a Regents would catch that. Like, oh, okay, they did it weird, but it still works. So try to keep things as normal as possible is my point. Like, don't do some crazy weird thing to, try to be funny or try to be outside the box. Just keep it normal. Where does the 3 and minus explicit formula? That was the explicit formula. The formula is A1 plus D parentheses n minus 1. I just plugged in. No, I was saying that I think this happened on the mock Regents. Like a bunch of you guys did something really strange and, kind of rewrote the order and, someone's grading quickly they might just look at it and go like, oh, that's wrong. That's not the answer. That's not how someone should be grading because you're supposed to be, that's what's tough about math grading, right? There's an answer. Like I can have an answer key, but then I also have to be able to be like, oh, okay, that also works. All right, 32, the last part 2. Ooh, this one, I think this question was on one of your tests. Solve algebraically for all values of x. So now they're saying nearest hundredth. So am I even going to try to factor this? No. I know it's going to be ugly. Am I going to do CTS here? Probably not. I don't want to deal with 3 being cut in half. So how would I do this? Quad formula. It does say algebraically, so I can't just calculator hack this. Oops, what if x right? X equals negative b plus or minus. This formula is given to you. People usually mess up the b squared part when it's negative, but we don't even need to deal with that here. We don't need to bother with simplifying the radical. Just calculator this once we get it set up. Our radicand will be 9 minus 4, or just 5. And now we do have to type this in twice. Negative 3 plus rad 5, negative 3 minus rad 5, over 2, sorry. Negative 3 plus rad 5 over 2. Negative 3 minus rad 5 over 2. And to the nearest hundredth, your two answers would be negative 0.38 and 2.62, I believe. Unless I'm messing something up. Oh, I am. What did I mess up? 4 AC. I don't know why I wrote that. Sorry about that. Something looks suspicious. 9 minus, what should your radical be here instead? Plus 36? Is it 45? Sorry, when I wrote the formula down, I just put 4a for some reason instead of 4ac. I don't know why I did that. Yeah, 45. And now let's see what that equals. Thought something looked weird. This question was on your test, and I'm like, I don't remember that being the answer. Negative 3 minus. Yeah, obviously you would have it on your little sheet, your reference sheet. I'm going to suggest when you take the Regents to rip that sheet out. I've had people take the whole test and be like, oh, I forgot it was there. It's usually at like the very back. This is my nice and much neater answer key. So yeah, 1.85 and negative 4.85. Sorry about that. Yeah, when you mess up, you could always just say, I was checking to make sure you're paying attention. I wrote b squared minus 4a and just stopped. But yeah, 4ac. Okay, make sure you round correctly. These are kind of annoying to be part twos because it's a lot of work for a 2-pointer. And you mess one little thing up, you're looking at. That's the part twos. We're doing good. We have 5 more questions left, but these are the heavy hitters. All right, 33. We have an inequality word problem. We have bottled water and sports drinks. Sports drinks cost $15.79. Bottled water is $5.69. They have $125 to spend on drinks. We're gonna write an inequality, and then use. Okay, this one's not bad. So they tell you which variables to use: y for x for sports drinks, and y for water. Always make sure you're putting the right letter with the right coefficient. And they have $125. So what symbol should I be using here? I don't want to put equals. They even tell you to put an inequality. What inequality symbol should we be putting? Less than or equal to. Very good. If you have some amount of money, your options are spending all of it or spending less than it. You certainly can't spend more than it. And now for the follow-up. Okay. Yeah, this was like a weird 4-point question. So I guess that's 2 points right there. And now 9 bottles of water. So they're going to tell us that y is 9. Find the maximum amount of sports drinks and explain. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to plug in a 9 for y and solve for x, basically. And then we have to deal with this, like, my answer is a decimal, but what should we say type of thing. We've seen this before. 569 times 9, 125 minus that, you get 73.79, I believe. And now when we divide by 15.79, you'll get 4.67. I'll just cut it off there. So how many cases of sports drinks can we buy? How many cases? Four cases. Can't mathematically you would round that up to 5, but we can't buy 5. It does say to explain. So let me pull up the models just to give you an idea. This was question 33. Let's look at the top explanation. Four cases of sports drinks, do not have enough money to purchase 5, can't buy part of a case. Yeah, something along those lines. You you showing your work isn't explaining it. Also, to be clear, if you're like, oh, I explained it because I showed my work, they want like a little sentence afterwards. Here's another full credit one. Only 4 cases of sport drinks can be bought because okay, they're just like talking about the math out loud. 9 waters cost 51.21, and with the rest of the money, only 4 cases can be bought. Not the best explanation, but yeah, it's the idea that hey, we'll have a little bit of money left over, but we can't afford the fifth one. I would maybe even say something like that. You don't have enough money to afford a fifth case. Okay. Yeah. So I'm looking at a model response. I know you guys can't see this. I'm looking at my laptop. If you just, and this would probably be common for this because people would think like your work was good. If you just did what I have on my page right now is a 3 out of 4. And the reason is you did not explain why 4. You showed your work, but did you explain it? No. It doesn't say it around. You can't buy a decimal case. You can't go into Costco and say, "Hey, can I have like half of this?" Yeah, I can't go into McDonald's and say like, "Hey, I'm only going to eat like half of a burger. Can I take a bite and pay you half?" All right. Um we have a quadratic graph. Okay, we don't usually see these. She means for the last thing, for the x. Yeah. Wait, what? I'm not sure, but yeah, Caleb, it's assumed that you have to round. That's what we're all talking about. So yeah, if you were to say 4.7 or 4.6, it just doesn't make realistic sense. No, just because of like how you buy things. All right, well, that's what we were joking about. Like, hey, you can't buy a decimal amount of something. Yeah, it also Trini's right. It also even reminds you like how many full cases can you buy. Here with these, my suggestion would be type this into your calculator. Let me give you guys a minute or two to do this to kind of get this set up. I think this one we snuck in a quad test as well. If someone has a better memory than me, this does. Yeah, I think this was on your quadratic test. With this one, if my memory serves correctly, we did fairly good. A lot of people were thrown off because you have some crazy decimals, but you just approximated. Don't panic and be like, "Oh, how am I supposed to do that?" But it does have to make sense. There were people that lost points because, um, I'm just making this up, so don't follow mine. But like, let's say they were trying to plot, I don't know, 5 comma 123, and they put a dot here. There's approximating, but that's wrong because you're going over the 125 line. That happened to like I want to say a handful of people. So while don't be too, you know, you can't be too generous with how you approximate the location of your points. No, it was on the. Oh yeah, you're being sarcastic. This was on the quad test. Okay. My other suggestion with this, I'm gonna actually just pull up my answer key to save some time. My other suggestion would be make a table. Make a table. This one ends at 10 seconds. So your table can just go from 0 to 10. From 0 to 10. You don't want to put arrows on this. It's a word problem. It doesn't continue. And then we have that. We've seen this a bunch of times in class. In I think we had a classwork packet that had a bunch like this. Find the vertex and explain what it means in context. What that anytime you see in context, that's referring to like, hey, talk about the nouns. Don't just say x equals blah, y equals blah. What are the nouns in the problem? In this case, height versus time. So hey, it reaches a max height of X meters in some amount of seconds. Take your time if you are able to kind of do this one. I'm just going to pull up my answer key to have it up. Don't peek unless you kind of want to see. Oh, I don't even have a table. I think I just ended up doing this one. But yeah, I would suggest having a table alongside of it. It just helps catch mistakes, especially with what we were just talking about. People putting, a wrong point in the wrong spot. So something like this takes about 10 seconds. I was looking through the model responses for this one. Something interesting that came up, and I'll share it out. But yeah, make a quick little table. The whole thing ends at 10 because at 10 it's at 0 again. So the whole thing's over rather quickly. This is what I mean. I think some people got intimidated with the decimals, but it's just approximating. So if we look at my graph, all of these points make sense. Let me highlight one. Let's say 278.4. So let's find 2. I have no idea if that's 78.4 or not, but what did I do? I went a little bit above 75. Does this make sense in context? If this line is 75 and the next one is 80? Yeah. 3102. I went a little bit above 100 and below 105. That's what I mean with makes sense. This was the point that I think people messed up, and I don't know why. 117 should be below 120, but above 115. And the vertex is a little bit above 120, halfway between 120 and 125. I also like to do these in pairs, so it's annoying. So when I do this point, I'll do this point at the same time. This way I don't have to end up doing like the second half. So you do them in pairs, aside from the vertex. And then, yeah, no arrows on your graph. Your vertex is at 122.5. And what does that mean? At 5 seconds, it reaches a max height of 122.5. If you add arrows, you would lose a point. Yep. This was interesting, I thought, because I almost did this myself, actually. But they took off a point for this. I'll read it out loud and see if you can catch it. Let me pull it up. Where was it? Okay. So this got a 3 out of 4. The graph is perfectly correct. They wrote 122.5. And they wrote, at 5 seconds, the rocket was 122.5 feet in the air. Yeah. They said the wrong units. Very strange mistake. Maybe I guess feet are usually more common, but kind of mean because at the end of the day, that person knew what they were doing. They just said feet. That's the more common measurement that we use. But I thought that was interesting. Maybe you even did that yourself and didn't catch it. So always make sure, double check what the units are, double check to include the units if needed. At 5 seconds, it reaches a max height of 122.5 meters. If you put feet, they did take off for that. Yeah, kind of sneaky. All right, next one. Answer key. Okay, whatever. I'll just leave this up. If you have a calculator on you, if not, this question will be impossible. But a regression question. With people on the mock, I was a little disappointed because some people on the mock, like, put a question mark, and we had just did it like a week before. Regressions, we're typing these into L1 and L2. This is like a free 4 points. You're going to see this as a part 3, and think of it as a free 4 points. Okay, it's just making sure you're rounding correctly. We should all know how to do linreg by now. Stat, calc, linreg, choice 4. Double check that your tables match. You didn't miss a value. You didn't mistype a value. That happened to a few people on the stat test. And round appropriately. Ooh, I guess this one works out perfectly. 0.41x minus 2.31. It doesn't say where to round, and it's because I think it just ends there. Correlation coefficient to the nearest hundredth. It's usually going to be something rather strong. Here's 0.99. Some people were thrown off on the last one we did. It was like 84. But yeah, that's still strong. 99. And then there's going to be some follow-up. How would you describe it? What does it indicate about the linear fit? So you don't need to reference the context. You could just technically here say strong and positive. Strong and positive works. It's a strong and positive correlation. It's close to being a straight line because it's very strong. Okay. Again, you're gonna see this as there's a few guarantees I've made. Someone keep track of all of them. You're gonna see this as a part 3, and it's a free, in the grand scheme of the test, this should be a free 4 points for everyone. I would be disappointed if I saw, anyone get a 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4 on this. Yeah, you could just say strong and positive. That's what correlation means. How close is it to being aligned? So this is very, how we saw those like dot graphs, scatter plots. How close is it to being aligned? This is like dots that are literally forming a line. It's very, very close. But you could just say strong and positive. You lost points. Why, Grayson? Rounding issue. Some people put like R squared. That's what I mean. Like we did really good with this on the stat test, and then we just like erased it from our memory. Yeah, that happened to a few people. Type something in wrong, you missed a number. I always like to do this. Like I'll type it in, and then I just kind of stare back and forth to make sure that I typed everything in wrong. Okay, good with this one? Ooh, no, I don't want to do that. Next one, I want to give you guys a few minutes because we're doing pretty good. We got 16 minutes left. A system of inequalities. We struggled a little bit. A lot of people lost points on this, on the mock. We have something a little strange we'll talk about, but I want to give you guys, around 5 minutes to do this on your own, on the paper in front of you, on the packet. I'll give you some tips or hints along the way. So what we want to do with the top one, we want to get y by itself. So to do that, we would divide by -2. I highly, highly, highly recommend writing down your 4 bullet points. Okay. What is M? What is B? What type of line? Where are you going to shade? We're also then given a kind of strange inequality here. What's strange about this? It's just a vertical line. So I don't need to do M and B. It's just going to be a vertical line. It is going to be solid. Now with vertical lines, we don't have above and below, because obviously if you're vertical, we can't be above or below. We have to the right or to the left. So in this case, since X has to be greater than or equal to -3, use common sense, we're going to be shading to the right. So take your time. I want you guys to do this one. We're going to label this solution set S. Make sure you label your 2 lines, and there is a follow-up as well. We've seen questions like this a bunch. We didn't do so hot. I know we were rusty probably when the mock came out, but just take a few minutes here. I know we've kind of been doing most stuff together, but I really want to give you guys an opportunity to take some time to set it up and get it laid out. And we'll take a look. I have an answer key already, kind of. Some of you guys on the mock just kind of like dove into the graph right away. That's what I mean. Like set it up. All right, let me divide by -2. Okay. Since I'm dividing by a negative, something happens. I flip the sign. And not only am I just going to leave it like this, I'm also going to do my four little, all right, M, B, what type of line, and where to shade. Having that down on paper definitely comes in handy. And then for your X, you can just jump into that one. There's no real work to do. People would be very confused by the X because you're like, what the heck? But it's just a vertical line. You can graph vertical inequalities. It's a vertical line through where X is -3. Take your time. You're setting this up, doing this in your packet. Take about, we'll say, another 2 minutes, and then I'll show you my key. Little things with questions like this, because there's a lot of moving parts, labeling your lines, your explanation for the little follow-up. This is a tough, we said the last question was like a free 4 points. This is a tough question to get the full 4 points, right? A lot of room for error. Take a look at my key here in a moment. Do you guys have an earth science meet today? Someone was saying you might have one. All right, I'm going to start. Don't, peek unless you want to, but I'm going to start putting my key up. It's okay if yours doesn't look exactly like this, but and you can see my keys are like usually me sitting and doing the problem. This is how I would do it. Okay, I did the selective shading here. So your M value would be -3/2. That's your slope. That's how we're going to move down 3/2 or up 3, left 2. Our y-intercept is at -6. It's a dotted or a dashed line, and it's above. Since you flip the sign, it does get shaded above. The vertical line is just a vertical line through -3, shaded to the right. So if the vertical line is to the right and the diagonal is above, the shading would end up being kind of this big section that I have shaded there. There's no real formal rules with shading as long as kind of like the S is in the right spot. I like to do this. I find it to be cleaner. If you shade it everywhere, that's fine. And label your lines. And then the follow-up does say to justify. So is Allison correct? No. And I just plugged it in and kind of showed that it didn't work. No, it's on a dotted line also works. Okay, I feel like that's usually the trend with this. They give you a point on a dotted line and want to know, is it a solution? How did we do with 36? I know I gave you guys a few minutes. Maybe you were in the middle of working on it. I'll give you another minute or two. How do you know to shade? Okay, good question. So how do you know where to shade? Because we can't say above and below. So it's kind of just like number line terminology. So if I say X is greater than or equal to -3, where are there numbers that are greater than -3? To the right or to the left? To the right. Yep. Think of it also as like an arrow pointing that way. It's telling you where to shade. But yeah, the only one that we can't say above and below is vertical lines. So you kind of just have to say it out loud. Like, all right, if x is greater than this number, should I shade this way or this way? In this case, it's to the right. Choose a sample number if it helps. Like, is 2 greater than or equal to -3? Yes. And where is it? Is it on the right or left? The right. Wait, so if it's vertical and it's shaded above, does that mean to shade to the right? Yes. I guess if you want to think of it that way. Okay. How did we do with this one before we look at 37? Jason face reveal. How did we do with this one? For the second part, can you say it's on the line? So, yep, yep. I always like technically justify is kind of like, show me some work here, but let me see. So, yeah, this got a 4 out of 4. This person wrote, Allison is not correct because 2 - 9 falls on a dotted line, which is not part of the solution set. That's what a lot of you guys wrote on the mock. So they count that as, being perfect. To me, I always think of justify as like verify with math. But if you put it into words correctly, it could be fine as well. There's like an overlap between, justifying and explaining. Good with 36? Before we look at 37, you could probably guess. Ooh, 37 was it was a system, but it's kind of a weird one. We'll see why. All right. So we have center A and center B. So this is our system. They say to call the equations A and B, and your variable here is x for x hours. So we're going to write two equations, and then we're going to plug a 10 into each one and see which one will cost less. So this isn't so bad to start. So for center A, the next page is not so friendly. For center A, it's 25 an hour and a registration fee of $25. Can anyone tell me what that would look like as an equation? What would be the equation for center A? 25x plus 25, yeah. And how about for center B? They do say to call it A. I looked through the models, and if you put like y equals, they didn't like penalize you, but I always just, follow what they tell me to call it. For center B, 15x plus 75. Good. The rate is 15. The constant is 75. And now we're going to find the cost for 10 hours at each class. So at A, 10 hours would be this. At B, 10 hours would be this. So that's going to be 250 plus 25 is 275. You could obviously use a calculator here. At B, 150 plus 75 is 225. So which center would cost less? Center B. It does say to use your equations, so you want to kind of show some work here. It's kind of like a hidden way of saying like, show your work or do it algebraically. I'm assuming if you just put center B with nothing, like you're not going to get full credit there. So you're just plugging a 10. Not a bad start. Okay, this looks pretty easy. We are then graphing this though. If you look at the next page, I'm going to pull these down here. So we have them. Okay. Now, we said whenever you're really not safe? Whenever you're graphing situations like this, M and B are probably not a great idea. Why not? Because your scales are different. Like in this case, the y is going by 5, x is going by 1. It gets confusing with how to apply slope because up 5 over 1 doesn't mean the same thing anymore. Or up, in this case, 25 doesn't mean go 25 boxes up, 1 over, right? It gets confusing to apply slope when scale is changed. So what I would recommend is, let's plot one at a time, first of all. So I'm going to focus on the first one, A. I'm going to plot the y-intercept. That we're still allowed to do. And then all we need, this is a line. The page there. On the packet? Oh no. How did that happen? Is it check the back? It's not on the back? The page is not there. Okay, well, just look on. I don't know what happened. The copies are all supposed to be double-sided. There's some issues with the copies. It's not a big deal. Um, just look at mine. Now, remember, when you graph a line, you only need 2 points. So what can I do? I can type this into y equals, pull up another point. All I need is one other point, and then I could just use a ruler. I'm going to randomly choose here, like, let's say 6 for x. So at 6, if I was to plug in a 6 for x, or again, reading off of y equals, you would get 175. Right now I'm just dealing with a. So now I'm going to plot 6, 175 very carefully. I'm going to put a dot there. And now I would just lay my ruler down and trace it. So, like I said, and we saw this come up a few times with these word problems. It's difficult to apply slope. So just plotting 2 points usually ends up being a lot easier. Kind of like when we did it came up recently with inequality like word problems. We said like just use the intercepts. Kind of the same idea here. Like just plot 2 points and play connect the dots. I just randomly chose 6, 175. You could choose any point on the line, reading it off the table. And I'm going to do the same thing for B, also notably here. I'm going to plot 75. And now I'll use, I don't know, 4. So if you plug in a 4, you'll get 60 plus 75 is 160 plus 175, 135. So 4 should be 135, very close to hitting. And now I would just go like this. These get kind of tight together there. And that's B. Okay, I don't want to put arrows on the left. You can put arrows on the right because it's just going up. It's not like going off the screen. It's not, getting negative or anything weird. So arrows on the right are okay. Arrows on the left, not okay. Because that would be negative hours, which is not possible. And when will these cost the same? Can anyone see it? I know you guys, for some reason, your page got cut off. But where do these hit? It's kind of hard to see. They hit right here at 5 hours, which is exactly $150. But all we need to say is 5 hours. It's like I said, a little bit unusual for question 37, because question 37, we've very consistently seen it be a system, which this still is, but like an elimination one. Like do it algebraically, use elimination. This is like a graphical one. Maybe you find this easier and you don't like elimination. I think it's just, stands out a little bit like, oh, that was strange. To plot something, a word problem, a situation with big numbers, weird scales, just plot 2 points and play connect the dots. Would you lose points for no arrows? If you didn't put arrows on the right, but you went to the edge of the graph, that would be fine. But technically it does continue, it does go on. How long were we saying we don't have a page? No one wanted to unmute. No one wanted to be brave. No one wanted to mic reveal. No, it would have been fine. Let me stop the recording.